Isabella was sitting in a dimly lit office on the 35th floor of Manhattan's financial center, her laptop flashing dozens of spreadsheets, reports, and graphs. She had just finished another long video meeting with a client in London. It was 7 p.m., and although it had been a hell of a day, the most difficult conversation was yet to come. The phone on my desk lit up, a message from my mom. "Don't forget to wire another $2,500 on Sunday. We signed up for a new air conditioner and ordered a coffee machine. This one only makes weak coffee." Isabella bit her lip. For the third month in a row, she hadn't allowed herself any new things or vacations, only work to pay her parents' mortgage, bills, food, and health insurance. Everything but love, because she had less and less of it. Later that evening, she arrived at her home in Connecticut. The atmosphere was familiar: a loud TV, full closets, her father with a glass of wine, her mother wearing a new designer blouse. "We need to talk," she said, sitting down at the kitchen table. "If you want me to continue to help with the mortgage, you have to cut back on your spending. You can't keep buying new appliances every month, changing the furniture, or vacationing in Florida. I have a life too." "We're not asking you to. We only expect gratitude," the mother replied sharply. "You are our daughter. It's natural. And it's not for you to tell us how to live," added the father. "If it's hard for you, just say so. Don't play the victim. It's not about sacrifice, it's about respect." Isabella's voice trembled. Her mother stood up and crossed her arms. "Then maybe you should think about your actions." This phrase remained in Isabella's mind as she left for Boston on a business trip the next morning. She still hoped that something would change after the conversation, that they would understand her, that the family she was pulling along on her own would finally see that she didn't have to. She just wanted to be supportive, but not at the cost of her own life. 5 days later, she returned, and she saw things on the stairs: shoes, a suitcase, even a box of her favorite books. And the door was locked. The key did not fit. Instead of her mother's smile, there was a piece of paper pinned to the door. "You should take a break from this house. Think about your words. We will too." There was no signature, but everything was clear. Isabella stood by the door, her face burning in the cool wind. She tried several times to insert the key into the keyhole, to no avail. It slipped in with a dull click, but did not turn. She tried again, and again. Her palms were damp. Her belongings were neatly stacked at the entrance: her suitcase, a box of documents, a backpack. Even her charger hadn't been forgotten. It was not a spontaneous decision. It was planned to the last detail. She was kicked out of her own home, where she grew up, but which she had actually maintained for the past 3 years. On the door is a piece of paper written in her mother's hand. "Isabella, you should live on your own for a while. Think about your actions. This is a temporary solution until you remember that family comes first." Isabella sighed and sat down on the stairs. She looked at her phone: 11:42 p.m. The nearest hotel was a 15-minute drive away, but all the rooms were sold out. She thought about her friends, but it was too late. Sleep in the car? It's funny. She earns 6 figures a year, manages an investment portfolio of tens of millions for clients, and she sleeps in her own car. That night she hardly closed her eyes. The thoughts in her head were as heavy as concrete blocks. Maybe I really overreacted? Or maybe I let them devalue me so much that it became the norm. The next morning she decided not to call, not to ask, not to find out. Instead, she went back to New York. She turned on her laptop, and she did the first thing she had never dared to do. She turned off automatic payments to her family's accounts. For the first week there was silence. Then the messages started. "What about the mortgage? It's late. Dad says his insurance didn't work out. Are you mad at us?" Isabella was silent. She was not angry. She was learning to breathe without pain. After work, she sat in her apartment on the Upper East Side, looking out the huge window at the city. In this city, everyone survives as best they can. She was forced to grow up very quickly. Ever since her father lost his job, her mother became a professional housewife, and pulling the family along became her only mission. But she never asked herself why this had become the norm. One evening, she met a lawyer, Maria, a friend from her student days. They were having coffee when Isabella asked cautiously, "Theoretically, if I paid the mortgage on my parents' house for 3 years, and this is proven by transfers from my account, do I have any rights to it?" Maria leaned closer. "Theoretically, yes. Especially if the payment was made to their property. And if we're talking about ongoing financial participation, then your claim to a share is not absurd. Even if you're not a co-owner, you can sue for compensation or force them to sell some of their rights." It was not a revenge plan. It was a plan to reclaim myself. A few weeks later, Isabella filed a request for all bank statements for the last 36 months. It turned out that during this time, she had spent $97,400 on her family. Half of it was for the mortgage. The other half was on their credit cards, which they had used to order things from QVC, designer clothes, restaurants. She saw a clear picture. They saw her generosity as a duty. They saw her help as a resource. They saw her success as an opportunity to parasitize. Her lawyer advised her to write a formal complaint or go to court. Meanwhile, the mother wrote a new message. "We can work it out. Just stop acting like a stranger." These words hurt. But this time, they didn't break her. Isabella opened a new document. At the top, she wrote, "Response to the request to deal with the family." And she began to type. Calmly, clearly, without emotion. She was expelled to think about her actions. And she did. Then she acted. While the weekdays flew by in the rhythm of office calls, stock market ups and downs, Isabella was preparing her personal operation, not revenge, but restoration of justice. She had financial evidence in her hands and a sober calculation in her head. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel guilty for wanting to stand up for herself. She started with a letter, an official letter, sent by registered mail with a delivery confirmation. It contained a complete list of payments she had made for the maintenance of the house, mortgage expenses with exact dates, amounts, bank transfers, a reference to the legal provision on unofficial investor in property, which allows for the demand for a part of the property's value or compensation for investments. At the end, there is a request to contact within 14 days for a voluntary settlement. Otherwise, a lawsuit will be filed. My mother called me 40 minutes later. "What kind of hysteria is this?" She started on the spot. "You decided to destroy our family because we taught you a little lesson?" "I supported you for 3 years," Isabella replied calmly. "You decided that you were entitled to my money, but not to my respect. And now it's just the result of your decisions. This is not revenge. It's a balance." "You're killing us," her mother said hoarsely. "Do you have a heart? I no longer have to sponsor your depreciation. If you cannot pay, the house will be sold." The phone silently disconnected. A week passed with no response. Then a letter came, and signed, printed. It offered not to bring the case to court, and instead to give up further claims in exchange for moral reconciliation. She ignored it. She sent a statement of claim. The formal process began. A month later, she was summoned to the Fairfield County Courthouse. She was represented by a lawyer, the same one she had worked with at the investment fund. At the first hearing, her parents looked distraught. Her father didn't look her in the eye. Her mother tried to keep a cool expression on her face, but her palms were shaking. The judge listened to the arguments. Isabella's actual participation in the mortgage repayment, bank documents, proof of her contribution to the maintenance of the house, repair bills, insurance. In turn, the parents stated that their daughter helped voluntarily, out of love. That it was not a business, but a family. That she was exaggerating. But the numbers had no emotions. They were objective. And the judge recognized that. Isabella is entitled to compensation of $49,000, a portion of the house's value that is directly proportional to her contribution. If the compensation is not paid, the property will be put up for sale, and the amount will be reimbursed from the proceeds. That evening, she went alone to her favorite bar in Manhattan. She ordered a glass of white wine. For the first time in a long time, she was without a burden on her shoulders. She was not a traitor. She was a person who finally believed that her boundaries mattered. In the weeks that followed, her parents began writing again, not with demands, but with pleas. First, to return everything as it was. Then, just talk. Then silence. Isabella changed her number. She changed her mailing address. She even quit her job, which was draining her last energy. She opened a small financial counseling startup focused on women who had experienced economic manipulation in their families. There were many stories. Too many. One day, she received an anonymous letter. It contained a photo of a house with a for sale sign and a short caption. "Now your truth is our home." She saved the photo to a separate folder on her laptop. The folder was called Freedom. 6 months have passed since the day the court ruled in Isabella's favor. Her life has taken on a new meaning, without the constant pressure, sense of duty, and the incessant struggle for recognition in the eyes of her own family. She rented a spacious office in Miami and immersed herself in her new project. Balance is the name she gave to her startup, a platform for women who have experienced financial pressure from their loved ones. Programs, consultations, webinars with lawyers, financial courses, everything to help them regain control of their lives. She became a speaker at several conferences and received offers of cooperation from large companies that supported social initiatives. Her story is an example of how important it is to protect your boundaries, even when it hurts. One evening, while browsing social media, Isabella accidentally saw a familiar photo. Her former home, now with a for sale sign. She went to the real estate agency's website and read the details. The house was sold at auction for $650,000. Something clenched inside her, not from pain, but from the realization that this chapter of her life was finally closed. Her phone lit up with a message from her lawyer. Now, after the sale, her parents had to pay her the rest of the compensation, another $15,000. It was not a triumph or a joy. It was justice. Isabella decided not to spend the money on herself. She transferred it to the account of a foundation that helped women fleeing toxic relationships. It was her way of giving back to the world a part of what she had lost. A few days later, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, just initials, B&H. Inside were old photos, little Isabella at a Christmas party, her first day at school, a family dinner. Next to it was a short note. We all make mistakes. We hope you find a place in your heart to forgive. Love, Mom and Dad. She stared at those words for a long time, but could not bring herself to answer. She knew that she would not allow herself to return to a place where she was not appreciated. But she kept the photo. As a reminder, once she was invited for an interview on a popular primetime show. The host spoke enthusiastically about her startup, but then turned to the personal. Isabella, your story is truly inspiring. But do you think reconciliation with your family is possible? She paused, then answered calmly. I am always open to a conversation if it is based on mutual respect. But sometimes we have to accept that family is not just about blood. It is people who value and support us, regardless of the circumstances. These words went viral on social media. Isabella had no illusions about her future with her parents, but she was no longer living their lives. She was living her own. When the show ended, her new partner suggested a walk along the ocean. They stood looking at the waves, and he asked quietly, Do you have any regrets? Isabella smiled, her face calm, almost peaceful. No. They asked me to think about my actions. And I did. Now I know who I am and what I am worth. She never looked back.